So let's now bring in Christopher Musando, Manager ICT Systems and Data Center at the IEBC, to just put some more perspective on issues of technology, which will be a very big issue in the 2017 general election. Karibu Bwana Manager. Now, today, as we begin this process of mass voter registration, the final phase, some of the biometric voter registration kits failed in the county of Kitui. What is your take on this, and is this a litmus test for the Commission to see what happens to the technology, especially?
Thank you, Ben. As we always say, the technology is working well at the moment. We've had a very good start to this exercise, apart from a few challenges here and there that has occurred in very few places in the country. But as a commission, we have our officers who are monitoring these failures, these small scattered failures across the country, and we are making sure that the kits are going to be up and running and working. So I want to urge Kenyans to turn up to the registration centers to register as voters.
In 2013, we did talk about the BVR and the EVID for the voter identification. We are now talking about an integrated system. If you can just talk us through how that works.
Well, Ben, you'll remember that in September last year, there was a bipartisan agreement between the two major coalitions in the country, where they came up with an Elections Amendment Act 2016 through a negotiated bipartisan exercise. Now, through this exercise, an Act of Parliament was formed. And this act introduced the issue of technology. And it expressly tells us, as the Commission, to use an integrated electoral management system. And that is the system that we have designed, and we've already advertised for the tender. And we are moving with timelines in order to implement this system. Now, to just put it into perspective, the current setup that we have for our electoral technology runs on three systems. One of them is the biometric voter registration system, which we are currently using to register the voters. The second technology that we use is the EVID, popularly known as EVID, which is used on election day, and it is the one used to identify voters in a biometric manner at the polling station.
All right.
The third system that we use at the moment is the results transmission system. This system is used at the end of the voting, the tallying of the votes, and then it is used to transmit results to several centers, for the constituency level, the county level, and in case of the presidential, the national.
This brings me to my question. That is, how compatible is what you are using right now to register voters beginning today and the integrated system, which will be in place hopefully by August? How there has been some compatibility questions raised about that?
We don't have any compatibility issues, Ben. What we have said and what we've put in our technical specifications that we are using to solicit for a partner to help us implement this system is very clear on what we want. We are only integrating the back end of our BVR system, not any other system, meaning we are only going to integrate the front end of the registration system and the back end, which we are currently running on our BVR system. Now, these technologies are based on standards, and what we are asking for in the market is that anybody who is going to be our partner must be able to conform to those standards that we are requiring in order for this smooth integration to occur.
Right. Let's talk about the issue that has been very contentious, the electoral laws, and that is the issue of the manual backup. So is it up to the IEBC to determine, like, when the electronic system fails, when to use the other system, which it hasn't been specified in the law? Is it up to the IEBC to determine that still?
Ben, Parliament has not told us to use a manual backup. I think there's a misconception that has been going on in terms of the language and the words used. Parliament, when they amended the law, they said a complementary system, not a manual system. And therefore, as a commission, we are going to come up with very clear guidelines and procedures to invoke some of this complementary system that we are going to implement. So it is up to the Commission to come up with the guidelines and, of course, involving the stakeholders. Because, you know, in the issues of elections, we need everybody on board. We need to have the political class.
Yes.
You know, they need to own that process. They need to be involved in that process for purposes of transparency, accountability, fairness, and openness. And that is what we'll be doing. We'll be engaging many stakeholders as we develop this guideline, so that by the time we roll them out, or
right,
we commission them, it will be something that has come up out of a process that is involving.
Complementary system it is. So will you or will you not use a manual system?
Well, Ben, as I've said, the law has not told us to use a manual system. The law has told us as a commission to come up with a complementary mechanism to identify voters and transmit results on election day. And
so the commission hasn't figured out what that complementary system is going to be?
Well, we are already working on it as a commission, because once the laws were passed, as a commission, we must comply with the law. And complying with the law means we must start working on it, because we don't have much time to think about it.
And just for our viewers, when a voter goes to the ballot booth on the voting day, there's only one way. I'm just seeking your clarification of identifying the voter, and that is the only BVR in the system is the fingerprints. Is that correct?
Yes, the only biometric, not
only
BVR. BVR
yes,
is the whole system kit, yes, for registration. The only biometric that we capture at the moment is the finger, but we also capture an image. If you go to register as a voter, we will capture your 10 fingerprints, and we will also capture a portrait, which is an image.
If I was to come and you cannot find my fingerprint in your system, can you use my image to identify me as a voter?
Ben, the system that we use for identification has various capabilities.
Right.
One of them is identifying you biometrically by using your finger. The other one is, for example, somebody whose biometrics have been destroyed, or somebody who is disabled and perhaps does not have fingers. They are Kenyans, they are voters, and they must be assisted to vote.
Right.
And therefore, our system has a way of bypassing the biometric authentication. You know, the procedure for voting is when you appear in a polling station. You first of all get identified with your ID, and we can punch that ID number of viewers into the EVID system, right, and this will bring up your details, which, of course, if you have fingers and it was a failure in terms of identification, right, we can do a one-on-one matching, okay, once your details have been pulled. Thank you so much.
That was very informative. Many thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Christopher Musando, Manager, ICT System and Data Center at the IEBC, just taking us through some of those issues that have been raised in terms of technology being used by the IEBC in the August 8th general election.